Yeah, Florent.
It's graving or graving?
Graving.
Graving. Okay. French?
Yeah.
You look like a lot.
Ah, c'est chiant. C'est pas scroller. C'est scroller, mais ça doit switcher la page, quoi. Je sais pas. C'est là, là. Tu peux essayer, hein. Ah, non, c'est avec les boutons. Je vais couper.
So closing this session, we have the last presentation that is called Rethink Geo Open Metadata Edition in Geo Network by Olivia and Graven. So you have 25 minutes.
Thanks, mate. I'm Florent. um, so yes, thank you to stay there for the last session. So today we're going to talk about how we want to revamp the edition process within GeoNetwork and to explain how this is integrated in a whole plan that we have for the GeoNetwork metadata catalog. So first an introduction. So we are both from Camp to Camp, working for a long time with data and metadata. I'm Florent Gravin, the head of technology of Camp to Camp, and I'm giving the talk with Olivia, our architect. And we are both involved in GeoNetwork for a long time, and I would say that we are both passionate about data in general, maybe not in metadata. But what we are trying to achieve in Camp to Camp is try to make the life of people who are maintaining metadata easier. So we are talking mostly about GeoNetwork, which is OSGeo software about metadata cataloging. And the thing that we want to focus on and to emphasize on is that all of this work, the editor part, is embracing a vision that we want to make GeoNetwork more compatible with open data, and because we have seen that many people, they have both open data and geodata catalog, and it's hard to deal with. So we are really trying to make a move and to do a turn within GeoNetwork to embrace the open data world toward a unique catalog which will be really simpler for everyone. So what is our ambition with the editor and with all this approach in general? Actually is the metadata maturity report of the European Commission really put a note, not a note, but the level of adoption of every country about metadata and open data adoption. And one criteria is how they use tools like Portal or APIs or things like that. So we think that it's our duty to help them toward that way, to be able to develop everywhere and deploy everywhere open data catalog in an easier way. So we are trying to push and to bring innovation toward this domain and to help everyone fill the gap with data openness in general. We also try to dynamize and support the rise of open data everywhere and to make the transition toward a unique catalog easier. And also, what is very important is to promote and propose the reuse of the data. So there have been other talk around this during the week. So globally, the strategy was just to revamp the services offered by GeoNetwork and the user interfaces. So the first step toward this goal was the Data Hub, which is a search facade. So it's an alternative UI to search the data. And the second step is the editor facade, which is an alternative to simplify the edition of the metadata. What is important to see is that the Data Hub is already available for anybody who is using GeoNetwork, and it really is people's life while searching for data, and it's open data oriented, the use cases and the user experience. But we are just on the halfway to complete the whole schema. Why? Because actually the data hub, so many regions, they already have their data hub, and it's gather open data and geodata, but in the back end, usually what it's done is that we are able to harvest any kind of open data catalog. So usually we maintain geodata and we harvest open data catalog from outside. The data hub centralized that, but we are just the halfway of the process because now we need to be independent on how we feed the catalog. How we don't want to rely on open data catalog anymore, so we need to have to continue the path to make able to easily edit simple data, simple metadata, and data who are not geospatial, to get rid of those other satellites catalogs. So the idea is that the editor that Olivia is going to present will help to feed the open data, the geospatial data, so the platform can get rid of external and proprietary softwares. So I'll let you, Olivia, introduce that.
Thank you. Okay, so now first I want to take a look at the current experience for authoring metadata in GeoNetwork, just to see where we're coming from. So GeoNetwork has offered a solution for editing metadata for a very long time, and it's always been built in a way that's kind of targeted at an expert audience. It can be confusing for users who are not trained or are not proficient in all metadata, schemas, and stuff like that. And also, when you are in the authoring and the editing interface, the form is very complex, and that's because GeoNetwork doesn't really offer a real abstraction over the underlying schema for the metadata. So you have all these fields, and experts are often happy with that because they want to tweak every field in a very certain way, in a very precise way. Yeah, but that's pretty much what's currently in place. And this has been hard to use for many people for a long time. We've heard that for a while now. People have thought about it. We've discussed it in the community. And it's been a long time since we identified a few axes of improvements: readability, usability of the user interface, the user journey through all the experience of working with metadata, and also having an overview of your records and your organization's records. So at Camp to Camp, we've been really trying to push for the idea of writing a new editor. The community has been, I would say, split between different opinions. Some people would be more inclined to do incremental improvements to this existing solution. And we have, I think most of the time, we've been pushing for a new editor, going to a very different direction. So this is kind of the history of what happened so far, because all this process took several years. In 2020, we started working on the GeoNetwork UI project, which is a new UI for GeoNetwork, which eventually allowed us to do the data hub that Florent talked about. This gathered interest notably from the GeoOrchestra community, which was very in line with our vision for a new editor. So we had their support, and we could keep going. We eventually wrote down our vision for the new editor, which would use the existing blocks that were in GeoNetwork UI. And so we would build on the experience of this project. And eventually it was presented to a PSC of GeoNetwork, which said, okay, this looks good. You can proceed, and we'll see how this goes. And then we started the crowdfunding campaign because our partners were interested, but no one had enough fund to say, okay, we will a big undertaking. So crowdfunding campaign was the solution. It was a tricky exercise, and in the meantime, we also did some preliminary work to have like some prototypes, also UX and markups. So we wanted to show something concrete to people. And yeah, and this year, first half of 2023, we eventually reached the goals of the crowdfunding. So a few words on crowdfunding. So we started in fall advertising our vision, writing articles. And the initial work was covered by R&D budget at Camp to Camp. doing the mockups, working on the pivot format, which I'm going to talk about later, which was really essential to all this vision. And we had a lot of interest from many partners. It was actually great to hear so much positive feedback. So that was great. We were super happy with the experience. You can see here the little gauge of how much money was pledged eventually. Right, so at that time, we identified a few core UX concepts for the new editor. We wanted to make sure that the user would be able to stop and come back to what they were doing, because writing metadata can take a while. Maybe it's sometimes you want to have a break or something. So we wanted to make sure that the user was not trapped in an interface or something. We wanted to make sure that the cognitive load was was manageable. So we kind of said 7 fields or less visible on screen. Also, give a clear overview of how far you are in filling up mandatory fields. If you want to have metadata that's compliant with Inspire, for example, we give you a progress bar saying, you did 4, you have 6 to go, almost there. Trying to encourage the user and support them. Right, make sure that the user cannot make mistakes when filling fields, which is basic UX stuff, I would say, and also offer a preview of the record before publishing. Right, so we founded our vision for the new editor on these 3 founding principles. The first one is make metadata accessible to everyone. This is implying that it's not just for experts. And then forget about metadata schemas and then build your own editor. Right, so the first one, make metadata accessible to everyone. It's pretty straightforward. We just wanted it to be built from the ground up with a user-centric approach. So before writing any kind of code, we just wanted to we organized like interviews with users, user groups. We set up working groups that would think about workflows, different screens, different actions. And then these groups would iterate on mockups. And then we would implement the mockups, not the other way around. Right, and then forget about metadata schemas. That was also something very, very important for us. We wanted to make sure that the people writing metadata would not have to know anything about schemas. So we introduced the idea of a pivot format here. The pivot format, it's an internal format that will allow us to convert back and forth to several interoperability formats. And then whenever the user interacts with the form, with any kind of editing form, we would just work with the pivot format instead of editing in whatever schema we are concerned with. That's a big change because the current GeoNetwork, for example, offers different forms depending on the schema you use. Right, and then, so the pivot format, just a few words, it's an internal format. We are not introducing a new metadata format in the wild. It's not stable, it will evolve, and it's really internal. It will be serialized. It will be able to be serialized in different ways and potentially in the future be serialized to be stored in a database, relational database. So it's really something that opens up a lot of possibilities. And we wanted also to make sure, that this format can handle most of the Inspire mandatory fields because we want users of this new editor to also be able to produce Inspire compliant records in an easy way. This is something that was expressed very strongly by most of the users. They don't want to worry about it, basically. Right, there was a first conversion written for ISO 19131, and there's a demo application online that showcases this conversion, so you can try it. It's on geonetwork.github.io/geonetworkui/simple-editor. So everything is written in JavaScript. It means that it can run in different environments. We're not limited to the browser or the backend, whatever. And there's also something very important is that the transformation preserves the original document. We're not destroying, when we're converting back and forth to ISO schema, for example, we're not destroying the original metadata. We're just amending part of the XML document that we changed. This is very important because the metadata documents are sometimes written in complex ways and contain information that we don't want to lose, so it's not overwritten. And there's a lot of test coverage. For us, it's really important to make sure that whenever the converters evolve, and they will evolve, we don't lose any feature, we don't lose any kind of functionality. So hopefully we'll be able to not do XSL anymore. At least some of us don't want to. Right, so converters, we will be able to implement more and more converters as the need arise. And yeah, so for us, it's a very promising approach, and it works for ISO, and there's no reason that it won't work for any other schema, because ISO is quite complex on its own. And one of the last really interesting things about the converters is that it could be used for more. It can be used for creating and editing metadata. It could also be used later on for harvesting. If you harvest a catalog that outputs DCAT, you could just convert the records to the pivot format and store them. And you could also say, well, this DCAT catalog, I can just have the data hub run over it and search through it because I can convert the records in real time in the front end. So it gives a lot of flexibility. Right, and then build your own editor. So basically, the editor will be made of building blocks, and then the administrator will be able to configure it, customize it in different ways. Yeah, and the key part here is that we want to provide a default configuration that enables people to make Inspire compliant records again. Right, a few mockups now. So all the mockup, the UX work was made in French, so the mockups are in French. You see here, this is the dashboard. This is basically when you will arrive and you will see your records, your organization's records, have a few information about how much you are, what's currently in progress. And then it would be the first section when you provide the data, second section where you describe it, give it a title, abstract, etc. And then the third part where you would describe how it's published, so which license, which usage conditions, which keywords, and things like that. Right, and just a few words to finish on the architecture, because how this is going to work, and it already works like that actually. We have something running, but it's very simple, is that we will not use GeoNetwork for editing API. Basically, we will just use GeoNetwork for as an storage of XML documents. So we load, if we want to edit a document, we load it in XML, we transform it to the pivot format, then we edit it in however way we want. We convert it back to XML and we store it like that. So it takes a lot of responsibility away from the back end, and the whole process is really simpler, and it's really fast actually. So yeah, we are really happy with that, how it works. Right, okay, Florent, your turn.
Yeah. Well, okay, thank you. So I think to wrap up about what we just said is in the data world and metadata world, you have experts who are really need to be compliant with complex schemas, but we saw that, we forgot that there are a lot of people who doesn't care about that and just want to fill metadata because they want their data to be searchable, crawlable, and findable. And within the work with the editor, we want to address that to those people. We want also to make the contribution easier, like with JavaScript and the XSL things, etc. So I think overall the experience will be better for the users and the developers. A quick word about the roadmap. So we're going to start the editor this summer to work on the code base. So actually, so in a year, hopefully, everybody will be able to have a first version in production, then you can plug your GeoNetwork on. So note that the old editor is not going to disappear. It's going to be an alternative, like the Data Hub for the search. So you will still be able to edit very complex schemas or metadata if you need to, but if you don't need to, you just can use the editor in a year, hopefully. And then the configurability, the extension, yeah, it's going to be on a second step, so people will be really able to design the editor, what section, what shortcuts, what autofill, because what we want is that the people fill the less field as possible. That's the expectation of everyone. So last word about the roadmap. So it's a big schema, but it just relates the history of the GeoNetwork UI project and the revamp of all this stuff. So we have an application called Data Feeder that is going to be merged into the editor, where you can upload the data and they are ingested, and we extract automatically metadata out of it. The Data Hub, there is also Map Viewer in GeoNetwork UI, and there is the version 1 this year, and we just started the metadata editor. And there are other components, as you can see. So we told this week, you can find the records maybe online after the conference about the API, so for the reuse. So we are trying to make a product for the whole chain. And then maybe we will work on the ingestion of the data as well, because we want GeoNetwork to turn out to a data platform and to cover the whole life cycle of the data flow. So to conclude, the promise of the work we are doing is all of this world. We think that it was very important for us not to start something completely from scratch or to present another product, but to apply that to an existing product. So that's why we wanted to do that under the umbrella of GeoNetwork, because we think that it's a very great engine to deal with data and metadata and search and indexing. So it was a bigger effort, I would say, but I think it's how we work. We just try to adapt things and make things evolve to be better within the OSGeo community. So I think hopefully it's going to be the best alternative, the best free and open source alternative to manage your data sets in general. So that's the promise, and I think we are on a good way for that, and we are already successful with the Data Hub, and hopefully the editor will make life easier and people will be happy that it lands in their ecosystem. Thank you. No, the sponsors, just thanks to all guys that they responded to the crowdfunding and gave money and help us and believe in our vision. And we hope that all other people will come along to make the editor even better. And yes, now it's time for the thank you.
So I noticed the lot of technical background that's necessary to create for the end user a nice and easy to use solution. So people, some questions? You don't have any? Come on. We have plenty of time for questions.
It was clear.
Yeah, so I will.
You're just waiting for it.
I will do the same question that I did for the last presenters. I don't know if you were still you were there on the audience. So you know that many people are pretty not very fond of metadata.
Yeah.
So what is the main challenge, on your opinions, to make people to make metadata more widely adopted?
Wow.
I think one of the big things is stop pronouncing the word metadata because it's kind of scary. The idea is just like, I mean, if you want to put your data somewhere, you have to describe a little bit of it. Otherwise, it's just useless. And I think everyone can understand that. So we're just saying someone will put their file and say, okay, just let us know, give us a few words about what it is. And if it's a catalog that's really oriented towards users without a technical background, then the administrator can make it very simple. Just a few, keyword, title, abstract, and that's it, and you publish it.
Oh, interesting. Your answer is pretty similar to the other presenters. It's like making the the data creation more widely constricted to the metadata creation, or something like this. Some question from the audience? Here, that guy.
Hello, thank you. I don't remember all the details about those, like the standards that you mentioned there. Does it include data dictionary, like the editor? Can you edit the fields and everything, and describe the contents?
Data what? Sorry.
The data dictionary for the data, like
attributes.
Yes, attributes. Because some of the the geospatial data, there's lots of following data behind the actual spatial dimension. So can you describe the data dictionary there in the editor?
Yes, of course. And usually when there is the part of the data ingestion, you are talking about catalog of feature catalog or catalog of attributes. How to describe the data?
Just like with the spatial data, there's lots of attributes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Can you describe them in
Yes.
detail?
Okay. So usually, if there is data ingestion, we're just trying to extract the attribute catalog from the data. But anyway, there will be some things to be able to edit the attributes, because afterwards they are indexed, so you can search for a certain attribute within the search. For instance, I don't know if your age, and there is a data set with us age, and the data set will come out. So yes, I think it's the part. And other thing is, during the ingestion of the data, we want to include a preparing phase where we can enrich the data to prepare them for their usage or their visualization. What means that you could be able to change the name of an attribute, remove attributes, add filters, etc. So actually, the data set you ingest is prepared for its usage.
Okay, thank you.
So we have time for one more quick question. So to end it up, do you have a suggestion for a nice replacement for the term metadata? You already thought about some? Just
no.
Oh, okay. So take it.
Information.
Yeah.
No, but I think to add something from Olivia, we don't have to make too much about the metadata in itself, but to make parts of a workflow where just the metadata edition is just a small thing. And then try to make it very easy to edit with a preview, instant preview, so you directly see what you are doing and why you are doing it. So maybe people will like more metadata, hopefully.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you all.
So I declare this session done.